Joining me now is an MMA bantamweight fighter who takes on Patrick Ward in the co-main event of Havoc FC 11 in Red Deer, Alberta on Friday, December 2nd. He is Brad Katona. Brad, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you taking the time this evening. Now, first off, you said it yourself to me a little while ago over text. Your 2016 hasn't gone quite as planned, perhaps. You started the year out very well, getting the win at Prestige FC 2. Seemed like the year was going to be good, and since then, however, you've had a couple canceled bouts. First off, you were supposed to fight TJ Laramie at Hard Knocks 50 in June, so it's a little while since then, but I still want to talk about it quickly. He missed weight badly, and the fight was scrapped on weigh-in day. So walk me through everything that happened, the whole fiasco, the emotions that were running through you when you found out, and kind of just everything that went along with that pretty bad situation.
So I was slated to fight TJ Laramie, and really we were good to go. It was one of those where almost everything was going too smoothly. I had just finished school, so I had a perfect camp where I could do nothing but take a couple weeks and eat, sleep, train pretty well, so as opposed to being a full-time student and fit in the training ground then. So that was great. My weight was on point. I had an unbelievable weight cut where I got on weight, no problem at all. It was the easiest weight cut of my life. I spent most of it watching South Park and Game of Thrones while I was in the tub cutting weight, and out of it, it was one of those where it couldn't have gone smoother until about an hour before weigh-ins when we heard he's going to be missing weight, and they were saying he's in the sign. He'll be lucky to make 140. So we're thinking, 140. That's a bit of weight to be given up. So we were trying to figure out what we could do then. If he was 140, and it was one of those where I was like, okay, how can we kind of even it up? But all of a sudden, we get to the weigh-ins. We've been hanging around. I checked my weight on the official scale, and I'm good to go. I was pretty well 135 on the dot, so I could drink a little bit to get up to 136 even because of the allowance. And so about 15 minutes before, we hear he's not 140, he's 145. And it was one of those where your heart sinks. It's like, what are we going to do? And all of a sudden, it was just a really keep in mind, I'm no matter how good the weight cut goes, I'm still dehydrated at this point. So it's been a bit of time, so it's a little bit foggy. But my understanding of the situation, at least from everything I saw, was I needed to be within 7 or 8 pounds of him, for the fight to go on. And keep in mind how close to when weigh-ins are starting too. So in a matter of kind of minutes, everything changes. He's much heavier. I get told, if you want any chance of this fight going on, you need to gain a couple pounds to be within that tolerance. So start drinking water, and partway through drinking water, it was like, you know what? I don't actually know what have we agreed to. There's nothing on paper. We signed a contract saying come in at bantamweight. And many fighters will say immediately after, cutting weight, it's really hard to choke down water. You can't really chug all that much back because you haven't really drank for quite a while. You're quite dehydrated. So it's not like it's the easiest thing of just to slug back a couple of liters. Like it's nothing. Your body starts cramping up. So I couldn't really put on much weight, and all of a sudden it was time to step on the scale. So we get taken to the back and step on, and I'm 136 and he's 145, kind of what we figured. And all of a sudden the commission wants to talk with us. So we talk with them, and they say, well, there's a 10-pound allowance so the fight can go on. Do we want it or not? And at that point, it was like, what do you mean? So I guess it got turned into a 140-pound catch weight. So that's maybe why there was a 10-pound allowance as opposed to the 7. I'm not sure. It was really kind of hectic. It was talking with my coach before the weigh-ins, and it was just communicating with the commission, just getting the message clear and what was going on. It was one of those where it was just a really confusing and also a little bit emotional. You hear your fights on, you hear your fights off, you hear it's on, you hear it's off. It was just a bit of a shit show, to be completely honest, as you can imagine.
Yeah, they didn't do you any favors.
No, exactly, and it makes it a difficult situation of you really want to fight, but what do you do? So, talking with them, we said, yeah, we'll take the fight if he can weigh in at 150 the next day, because they were saying he wasn't, he just wasn't sweating and stuff like that.
Sure.
They thought he was on point. So you know what? Fair enough. If he wasn't all that dehydrated, it would have been. He wouldn't have needed to swell up all that much weight, so it made sense. Okay, 150. They said they couldn't do that. He'd be too depleted. So, I'm not sure what they countered with. I think maybe 155, and then we said, how about 152 or 153? I forget the exact numbers, but eventually we weren't able to come to a conclusion, and because of that, well, if I'm fighting a guy who just struggled to make 145, it's not like I came into this expecting to be fighting at 145. I'd be even bigger, just dieting down. You lose the muscle, you lose you're not the same size as you are normally walking around, even cutting weight and rehydrating up. You're not the same as if I cut down to 145, I'd be slightly bigger. So there's one of those where it's like, man, we're giving up a lot of size on this one. We're fighting a featherweight. We're just fighting as a bantamweight. So because he couldn't meet the weight the next day, we decided to turn it down, and I believe he was around. I heard rumors that he was around like 164 the next day. So I don't know if that's true or not.
Sure.
But like he was obviously as depleted as possible to get to 145. As at least as dehydrated as possible. So if some bantamweight can swell up to mid 160s. All the power to him, but that also means he had to deplete all the way down to 135. So that's where the balancing act might not even work out in his favor. He might be huge, but I can't imagine him feeling good. So that's kind of what transpired. And then there's, it was really disappointing on both accounts. He was disappointed. He apologized. He just made the wrong decisions, be it he could have dieted off more or went and did his water cut differently. Maybe he could have made the weight, but still 10 pounds is a lot of weight. That's 5 liters of water he would have had to drop. So I can imagine dropping 5 more from where he was at.
Right, and that explains why TJ Laramie, after that fiasco, after that supposed to be a fight and ended up being a weigh-in. That's why he moved up to featherweight for his next fight, which has happened. But it's still nonetheless very, very disappointing situation. Now I hate to keep talking about the negativity and whatnot, but one other thing, Prestige FC 3. You're supposed after being on their first 2 cards, seemed to be all right. Prestige FC 1, you get the win. Prestige FC 2, you get the win. And you're lined up for the third show this October. And the whole card was canceled somewhat out of nowhere. So it's kind of a very, very, very bizarre situation. Prestige CEO and president, matchmaker Cord Crothers I'm sure you've noticed, he has deleted his social media for the second time. The fans, very quickly, the fans seem to be in limbo as far as getting ticket money back. Not a great situation whatsoever.
No.
If you go look at their Facebook page, you will see angry fans, to say the least.
That's not good, I wasn't aware of especially the fans, but I can speak on behalf of my past experience with Prestige the past 2 times, and they were great to us, So it's really disappointing to see what has happened. I hope everything's all right. I honestly. Yeah, I was shocked that the card got flat out canceled. It was extremely disappointing for me because, as we talked about, it's a bit of a rocky year already just in terms of getting. First off, it's been my whole fight career. It's been a pain in the butt getting fights. Most of them have been short notice, and finally, this was the second Prestige one was. Yes, my second Prestige fight was the only fight that I had pretty well a full training camp for. So yeah, this would have been it was perfect. I was in training camp. I was dieting down, feeling fantastic, and then a couple weeks before, boom, shoulder falls out, and I sure hope the fans can get the ticket money. It was pretty devastating because it was one where it was okay. How do we recoil from this? And one of the worst parts was I just showed out money for my medicals the morning it got canceled. I went to the doctor, got everything sorted out, perfect, paid my money, great. Went to the optometrist, got that done, fantastic. Throw out some money for your medicals, which isn't a crazy expense, but really, a couple $100 is a couple $100, and especially if you don't have a whole lot like me, it certainly feels like a bit of money. So the fact that I didn't even get my show purse, and even my fight before, not like us at this point being 3-0, I'm expecting huge paydays, but even for the Hard Knocks card, I didn't get any money. So all of a sudden, that's a couple paydays. Well, you're not necessarily banking on it. You shouldn't be making life decisions around it, but it would have been a nice little bonus, just to offset some of my costs, being two medicals that I just paid for, So, yeah, I know nothing about the Prestige. Supposedly it was a commission issue at first, and then they were going to postpone it a couple weeks, which was okay. If they postponed it a couple weeks, it kind of screwed up. I wouldn't have been able to fight on it because I planned a trip to Ireland for 2 days after what would have been Prestige FC3. It would have been kind of perfect as long as I was healthy. I was going to be flying to Ireland and taking a week and just enjoying it, and then training at SBG for a couple of weeks. It was going to be an amazing. Just timing would have been perfect. Yeah, but then that fell through. So at least I had a holiday to look forward to.
Yeah, I kind of imagine, or I kind of assume from what you've been saying here, that you weren't given any sort of explanation as to why they canceled it. Did they say it was a commission issue, or are you just kind of speculating?
What at least I heard was there was a commission issue because at Prestige FC2 there was some rowdiness, so they needed more security in order for the athletic commission to allow it. I'm not sure about the truth of that, or even if I have that story correct. That's just my understanding of it, which, I'm sure the Saskatchewan Commission's been nothing but great to deal with on my end, at least. So I can't imagine, a couple weeks before an event, they're going to be like, oh yeah, before you have your show, you're going to need to do this, which is, you're going to need to beef up all these issues. I'm sure they told, Prestige about that as they were already applying for the commission, So I'm sure that happened 8 weeks out from the show, so that should have been an issue that could have been planned and resolved right away. So could it have been an excuse? I'm really not sure, but obviously there was going to be an announcement, and then you go the next week, there's going to be an announcement in 3 days, there's going to be an announcement in a day, and then it was always the next day leading us on, and I was thinking, I was like, well, crap, I need a damn date if I'm going to be sticking to it, and eventually it got to the point where it's like, well, it's not looking like it's happening.
Yeah. When was the last time you talked to Cord? Either over the phone, in person, or via text?
I haven't really talked to Cord in a long time. Everything works through pretty well since Prestige FC2. That was the last time I actually talked to him. But my coach and manager, Curtis Brigham, talked with him, and I think his last time must have been that Wednesday. Well, I guess he's talked to him since, asking about the show times and stuff like that, and he kept giving us a skeptical, or at least a date when he thought it would start. But in terms of recently, I haven't asked about it because it doesn't look like it's happening.
No, it doesn't at all. I don't know if you know, but Scott Zer actually left Prestige, so I'm thinking that had something to do with it.
Yeah, then that might have. I always had a really good working relationship with got too. So I think he's with Legacy right now.
He's with he's doing the Muay Thai Lion Fight and also Victory FC.
Oh, Victory, that's it. I called it Legacy and just another promotion. Yeah, so he's doing that. So hopefully I can, he's been nothing but a gem to deal with. So I'd certainly like to keep in touch with him and stuff. I was aware that he did leave Prestige, so that could very well be an issue. But Cole would have all the contact information for all the fighters anyway, so I'm not sure what he'd need him for. I believe he did mostly, the matchmaking and stuff like that. But I'm not sure on all the details with the relationship either.
Quickly, Victory FC, it sounds like you may have heard, but it sounds like they could be coming to Winnipeg early next year, so fingers are crossed for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be great to have a show in my hometown. It's been a long time since we've had one. And as a bonus, being on a card like Victory, especially with them being on Fight Pass, is fantastic, because pretty well the only other Canadian promotion on Fight Pass, I believe, is TKO.
Yeah, Victory isn't actually based in Canada. They're more of a U.S. organization. But if they come to Winnipeg, that'd be for sure.
I'd love it. I'd want to be in it. I haven't had the opportunity to fight at home since my amateur boxing days. So I know when a lot of my teammates were starting up, and they got to fight at home quite often. It was a fairly regular thing, 2 times, even sometimes 3 times a year. So I know people are wanting an event to come. It's just a promotion putting it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all of that negativity out of the way, let's move on to what's actually happening now and what was supposed to happen and didn't happen. Havoc FC, you're taking on, you're fighting, of course, this weekend. Patrick Ward on Friday, Havoc FC 11, co-main event. How did you initially get in touch with Havoc FC?
I was actually halfway across the road in Ireland. I was in Galway, sitting down for breakfast, and all of a sudden I get a text message from my coach being like, "You want to take a fight?" And it originally wasn't Patrick Ward. It was originally Coy Gower, and that's who I was supposed to fight on Prestige FC 3. So, I was sitting down for breakfast, and I was like, "Oh, with a big breakfast in front of me," I was like, "Damn, I don't know what my weight's going to be." So I told Curry basically, let me check my weight, let me see how I feel in the gym tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. And the next day, I felt great in the gym. My weight was on point, so it was just one of those, well, I'm in shape, I'm ready to go, why not? And unfortunately, Gower couldn't get the time off work. I believe it was very short notice. It was less than 3 weeks at that point. So, he couldn't get the time off work, which is completely understandable. And so Patrick Ward said he'd take it, which is awesome for me. And I've seen his name pop up a lot, even when I was fighting amateur. He's been around quite a while, fighting on and off. And even as a pro, you see his name pop up on cards, and he's there, and then he's off it, and he's there. The only thing we had to wait for was he was fighting that Saturday. So once he fought, he won against Wesley Bowman, a guy I fought as an amateur as well. And just a fun fact, I beat him about half the time by the same rear naked submission. So maybe that'll foreshadow what's going on this Friday.
No kidding. Tapology says that this fight is at featherweight. Is that the case, first off? And if so, why are you fighting 10 pounds heavier than usual?
It's actually at bantamweight. At least that's what my contract says. So I'm assuming everything is a go at bantamweight. I hearing that it's at featherweight, I'll certainly need to talk with my coach. But my understanding is the fight's at bantamweight. I know that sounds funny, but a lot of these companies, it gets said in one place. I think on Top MMA News it was at featherweight and didn't think anything of it. But if a couple of promotions, I checked the website and the fight's not on there. So all I can really do is check my contract. It says 135 bantamweight, and I'll talk with my coach, and he'll contact Havoc just to make sure, because I'd sure hate to weigh in at 135 and him coming 10 pounds heavy.
Yeah, a repeat from June.
Yeah, you know what? Knowing how this year's been so far, I wouldn't be all that surprised.
Yeah, and yeah, it's crazy. And even just before I think Prestige was canceled, I remember I texted you. I saw somewhere that your fight could have been canceled. I'm like, Brad, do you know anything about this? And you're like, no, what's going on? And luckily, of course, nothing had happened at that point. But yeah,
it did though. You know, we went through a couple opponents for Prestige SC3. Gower pulled out; he had injured his knee, and we went through a couple of names, and all of a sudden, you know, they came up. I think Michael Spoinlin, I probably mispronouncing that, but we were supposed to be, you know, he was contacted for that, and his team said he's now fighting at flyweight. So, you know, we'll see if he fights at flyweight. That's still a fight I'd love if you want to take it at bantamweight, but, you know, if he's a flyweight, well then I guess it's not going to happen, because there's no way I'm going down to 25.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about your opponent, Patrick Ward. What do you know about him as a fighter stylistically, and how do you think you match up against him?
I know I match up great against him. I think I match up great against all the bantamweights out there. I know where my abilities are at, and I really think I have the skill set to beat the top guys out there. But Patrick Ward, he looks like he's one of those tough guys to judge. He looks really scrappy, really aggressive. He seems to throw hard, and has half decent wrestling. That's all I can tell from what I can find. You know, so he, you know, you never know. He could come out there trying to wrestle me. He could come out there trying to take my head off, or he can come out there trying to box me. It's really, we'll see. And pretty well training camp, all 3 weeks of it. It was pretty well just getting sharp at this point and getting that peak conditioning in. So I'm pretty well ready for anything he can throw, and I really don't think it's going to matter. Just, I know where I'm at. I'm nice and refined. I'm the best I ever have been. You know, my weight's on point. Everything's on point. So, you know, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Friday.
Awesome, man. And who are some of the guys at WAMA specifically helping you get ready for this fight?
You know, we have a couple guys around his body type, at least. You know, we have Paul Matsumoto, who'd compete at 45 if he did, but he's definitely a guy who can throw his hands, has really good kicks too, and he just has a complete game. He's been with Curtis Brigham as long as I have, so he's a guy who's really skilled, and you know, he's been a great training partner for me, both in the wrestling, at the ground, the stand up, everything. He's been able to replicate pretty well anything I should see, as well as Neil Gottsman, one of our amateurs. He competes at 55, and you know, he going against a guy who's a little bit taller, because I'm going to be giving up most likely a little bit of reach in this matchup, which I normally do. It's not something I'm afraid of, but he's going to be bigger, stronger, and a better grappler than Patrick Ward as well. So, you know, it's one of those where I got some people to really replicate pretty well every look I'm going to get from him, to people who are scrappy, to people who are grapplers, to people who are going to, you know, try to box me. I got everything.
Nice. Now, of course, not too long ago, as you mentioned earlier on, you made the trip over to Ireland for, how long were you actually over there? It felt like 3 weeks. Was that 3 weeks? Or?
I was over there for a month. You know, October 9th to November 9th. I was over there quite a while. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it must have been quite the experience. Was it the first time in Ireland?
Yeah, it was actually my first time leaving North America. So it was quite the trip. You know, when it was the perfect combination at the beginning of sightseeing, you know, pub hopping, because you're in Ireland, you got to, as well as training. You know, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to train at SBG Ireland, as well as SBG Cal at Paddy Houlihan's gym, who was just a gem of a human being, and I got to take many coaches with John Kavanagh, many classes with Coach John Kavanagh and the team. So it was just an unbelievable experience. Just getting that exposure to top level gym, from the bare roots amateurs to the established pros. You know, it was more than I could ask for. The trip was absolutely fantastic.
I believe it. How did you actually set up training at SBG? Did you kind of just hit them up and say, I'll be in the area, would love to train, and were they kind of just
pretty much?
Or?
It was like coming to Ireland for a month, looking to train, and you know, I just emailed them and kind of explained who I was, and that way they just know I'm not really a tourist. And even then, you know, it's not like you're going to email them and all of a sudden get into the team practices. They obviously wanted to see me first and see me do. I did a couple grappling classes. Like, okay, this guy's actually serious about it. And then after I did a couple of the team practices, right away I assumed. I imagine I didn't look like I was just there to say I trained there once or twice. You know, I was there to learn, and you know, I learned tons while I was there. It's a completely different style, and even coaching style and bodies, everything. You see, it's just nice getting that exposure to a completely different gym. You know, it was a really good learning experience.
Absolutely. I gotta ask, did you get the chance to say a few words to Conor McGregor while you were there?
I didn't get much chance to talk to him. I guess I could have been more going to talk to him, but really, when I was there, it was cool seeing him on the mat next to me training, but obviously I wouldn't be partnering up with him. First off, I'm a bantamweight, and he was fighting for the lightweight title, and second off, you know, you don't change anything around 3-4 weeks to your fight, especially a fight for a world title. You don't start working with new partners who you never have done before, you know. So maybe if he wasn't fighting, I would have gotten the opportunity to even have a round or two with him, even on the mats, rolling or something like that. But yeah.
Awesome. Are you there?
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that's about it. Just one last question. Got to get a prediction for this fight, December 2nd, this Friday. How do you beat Patrick Ward in the co-main event of Havoc FC 11?
Yeah, you know, I see this fight going one of two ways, and whichever one he's getting stopped in the second. You know, first way is he's going to come out hard, and there'll be a little bit of weathering the storm, and then just picking him off from there. The second way is him starting a little slower and figuring him out, and my shots start landing, you know, more and more. And then when that happens, I think in the second round he's done. You know, I can't see myself not stopping him in the second round, be it by you know, strikes or even a submission.
Awesome, Brad. Appreciate the time as always. Before I let you go, remind my audience where they can check you out on social media, and if there's anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to, now's your time.
So you can find me on social media, pretty well at Brad Katona. I have a Facebook fighter page. I'd really appreciate any likes I can get there, as well as I'm on Instagram a bit. You know, I've been building it up. I'm on Twitter if you want to follow me as well. I'm not as active there, so really the main two places you can get at me is on Instagram and on my fighter page, both just my name, Brad Katona. And yeah, I got to thank, as always, everyone that I've been training with. You know, the training partners and your coach is really what does it. So, you know, the Winnipeg Academy of Martial Arts here in Winnipeg is, in my opinion, the best jiu-jitsu and best MMA school as well. We have amateurs, we have pros, and we're one of the only gyms in the city actually producing new fighters. So, you know, if anybody wanting to start, it's definitely the place I'd recommend to get into the sport, as well as United Boxing Club. This has been with me for quite a while, so I've been working with the coach there, Ryan Savage, and, you know, he's just a fantastic coach, a former, you know, world-class international level athlete. So, you know, it's both him and my coach, guys who have the experience and also have the great coaching behind them as well.